Alex Murdaugh, just saying that name will grab your attention. His double murder trial and convictions capture the attention of so many. It's been described by some as the trial of the century in our area because, you know, Colleton County, South Carolina, just down the road. There were so many twists and turns in this case, but in March of 2023, Alex Murdaugh was convicted of killing his wife Maggie and his youngest son Paul on their property back in 2021. It took the jury less than 3 hours to deliberate and render those guilty verdicts. Since then, he's been trying to get a new trial, claiming the clerk of court tampered with the jury, influencing their decision. But a lower court denied that motion for a retrial because the jurors testified that any comments that Becky Hill, the clerk of court, that she made did not influence their decision. Now the Supreme Court has agreed to hear the case. The date for that has not been set yet, though, so we're still waiting on that. Now, someone who had a very unique view and role in this case is joining us today, one of the jurors, Amie Williams, juror 864, who has written a book about her experience along with Shana Hirsch, who was an avid trial watcher. The book is called The Long Road to Justice: Unraveling Alex Murdaugh's Tangled Web. Amie and Shana, thank you for being here with us today. Tell us why you wrote this book, and of course you have a unique perspective on this. And when you guys wrote this book together, you actually re-watched the trial because she was able to finally see what we all saw at home watching it on TV.
Yes.
So what prompted you to do this?
Well, I had a lot of questions. When I returned from work, everybody, and I had people text and call me that I haven't spoken to in years when they saw me on the Today Show.
That's right, because nobody knew who you were until you went on the Today Show and announced that you were one of the jurors.
So I said, you know what? Maybe I thought about maybe writing a book, but when I have a coworker that's also a friend of Shana's, and he told me that she said, she wants to have dinner with you and she wants to write your book. And I was like, okay. You know, so I said, maybe this is a sign. Maybe I should write it. So that's what we got together and we started talking about it, and that's it. All just went from there.
And I know you said you wanted to dedicate it to all the people who were tangled up in Alex Murdaugh's web.
Yes.
Describe that feeling and why you thought that was so important to do.
Well, the victims, of course, of you know, the financial crimes and everything, and his family, the victim and Maggie's family, most definitely. And then also the jurors. It was very important to make sure that everyone understood that we had minds of our own. We sat through 6 weeks of testimony and we understood everything that we witnessed and we heard, and we did come to the decision on our own. So I just wanted to dedicate it to them, and I wanted the family to know that, you know, Maggie's family to know that we did what we believe was right.
Which was especially important to get out, you know, even after the jury tampering question. And we want to remind our viewers that Becky Hill, the clerk of court, was on our show at one point. She wrote the book, Behind the Doors of Justice, right after the verdict was rendered, and then she later admitted that she plagiarized. So we just want to make sure we have that clear. But for Shana, you know, why was that important to tell the story, especially working with Amie on this?
I mean, I was so riveted by it, and I knew that so many other people were. I thought it would be really interesting to get that juror perspective, because we only get like a little snippet of it every time that there's a high-profile case. You know, very seldom do they just keep talking and talking, and there's so many unanswered questions. So I thought everybody would really enjoy that.
Well, at one point you had mentioned that you wish you had never been on the jury or chosen for the jury. Do you still feel that way, Amie?
Not really, just a little bit. The only reason I said that was because of the turmoil that we went through because of the jury tampering charges, and it just turned our life. The fact that people just fell into that and actually believed that was just horrifying and very hurtful. And I just couldn't believe it. And that was the thing, was like, I just wish I was never chosen to be on this jury. But I'm glad that I had the experience, and you know, we have to understand that this is our duty. You know, that this is something that has to be done, but you have to do it the right way. And I believe that we did.
Well, Shana, from watching the trial, you know, like the rest of us, what did you learn from talking to Amie that you want to make sure was put in this book?
I think a lot of the emotions that she had going through it, like, especially since they couldn't really talk about it. Like, they couldn't talk about anything And I know for me, watching it on TV, like when Blanca testified and Shelley Smith and Marion Proctor, all of that, I was like texting, calling, talking to people. I couldn't imagine how it would be that the emotions that they were going through. So I was like, I did my very best to like try to convey that and bring it to life, because there's so much that people don't know that about being on a jury, that especially one that's that long.
And what about when Alex Murdaugh came out and took the stand?
It was it was crazy. It was really crazy. I thought it was really funny how when he got up from the table, I was just watching him, and he almost fell. Just the way he got up so quickly to get up there, and I'm like, wow, okay. But when he turned his chair around, because I was right there, I was on the second row, the second seat, right across from him, and I was like, wow, we're doing this. Just to turn his chair completely around and stare right at us, and I'm like, this is crazy.
Was it intimidating in any way?
It wasn't intimidating to me. I was like, so what's gonna happen? I mean, what is your thinking on this? This is, so I don't know.
Wow. So with this book, we want to make sure people know that the proceeds from this are going to go to Sanctuary House, which is something that you would like to create.
Yes.
Because you yourself were a victim of domestic violence, so you would like to help people with the proceeds from this book.
Yes. So part of my proceeds, my royalties, will go towards Sanctuary House, building it. We're in the early stages. We need donations. We need all the money we can get, because it's a big undertaking to help women get their lives back and to be able to stand on their own 2 feet and take care of themselves and their children again and have the freedom that they need to do so. So we need all the help that we can get, and I thought that this would be a great idea if part of my proceeds would go towards this.
Okay, how can people get your book?
Oh, they can go to our website, thelongroadtojustice.com, and there's a link there that takes you directly to Amazon. That would be the easiest way. Or you can just go straight to Amazon, Barnes & Noble, anywhere it's sold. You can, and there are a few local bookstores, like the Buford Bookstore, and maybe McIntosh, that probably has copies as well.
All right, well, Amie and Shana, thank you for joining us today and sharing your story with all of us.